Darkness didn't just swallow us. It erased us. Not the kind of darkness that comes when the sun sets, soft and familiar, wrapping the world in silence. No. This was something else entirely. Something older than the moon. Something deeper than the earth. Something that had existed long before wolves learned to run, long before alphas learned to rule, long before bonds were formed or broken. For a moment, I didn't exist. There was no body. No breath. No heartbeat. No pain. No fear. Just nothing. And yet, something remained. A spark. Faint. Distant. But alive. Then it pulsed. Once. Twice. Stronger. Warmer. Brighter. The child. The realization hit before everything else returned. Before the pain. Before the air. Before the world itself. The child was still there. Alive. And suddenly, everything came crashing back. Air tore into my lungs in a sharp, violent gasp as my body slammed against solid ground. Pain exploded through my back, my arms, my ribs as I instinctively curled inward, coughing, choking, fighting to breathe. My fingers clawed at the surface beneath me, cold, jagged, unfamiliar. Not soil. Not wood. Stone. But not like any stone I had ever felt before. It pulsed faintly beneath my touch. Alive. Elara. The voice echoed faintly. Soft. Distant. Not Kale. Not mine. Something else. Something watching. My eyes snapped open. Darkness surrounded me, but not complete darkness. There were shapes here. Movement. Shadows that didn't behave like shadows should. They stretched too far. Moved too slowly. Watched too closely. My breath hitched. Kale. Silence. The kind of silence that presses against your ears until it hurts. I pushed myself up slowly, my body trembling under the effort. My muscles ached like I had fallen from a great height, which I probably had. But this wasn't a place you simply fell into. No. We had been taken. Kale. My voice echoed this time. But it didn't travel far. The darkness swallowed it. Panic began to rise, sharp, fast, uncontrollable. He couldn't be gone. Not now. Not after everything. Not after everything we had just begun to rebuild. My stomach burned. The sensation was sudden. Violent. I gasped, doubling over as my hands flew to my belly instinctively. Heat radiated outward, stronger than before. The child wasn't just reacting. It was aware. You feel it. The voice came again. Closer this time. Clearer. Ancient. I froze. My heart pounded violently against my ribs as I forced myself to stand, ignoring the dizziness, the fear clawing its way up my throat. Show yourself. The words came out steadier than I felt. The shadows shifted. Not subtly. Not slowly. But with purpose. They pulled together like something unseen was shaping them. Forming them. And then it stepped forward. The creature. But not like before. Before it had been glimpses. Fragments. Now it was whole. Towering. Its form flickered between shadow and flame, its body unstable yet impossibly solid at the same time. Its eyes burned with a light that didn't belong to this world, ancient, knowing, endless. Power radiated from it. Not the kind of power alpha wolves carried. Something deeper. Something older. My breath caught. You. It tilted its head slowly. Me. My body instinctively stepped back, even as something inside me, something I didn't understand, refused to look away. "What is this place?" I asked. Its gaze sharpened. "This," it said softly, "is where truth lives." A chill ran down my spine. "That doesn't answer my question." "No," it agreed calmly. "It doesn't." Before I could respond, "Elara." The voice tore through the darkness. "Kale." Relief hit me so hard my knees nearly gave out. "Kale." He emerged from the shadows like he had fought his way through them, his chest rising heavily, his eyes wild as they locked onto mine. In seconds, he was in front of me. His hands gripped my arms firmly, scanning me, checking me, grounding himself in the fact that I was real. "Are you hurt?" "No. I'm okay." But the moment our eyes met, everything else faded. The bond surged. Stronger than ever before. Not chaotic. Not painful. But undeniable. Something flickered in his expression. Relief. Fear. And something deeper. Something that made my chest tighten. "We need to leave," he said immediately, his voice low, urgent. "You cannot leave." The creature's voice cut through the moment like a blade. Kale turned instantly, his entire body shifting into something lethal. "You don't get to decide that." The creature watched him calmly. "I already have." The air grew heavier. Thicker. Like the space itself was responding to it. Kale stepped forward, placing himself between me and the creature without hesitation. "You will not come near her." The creature smiled. "And that was worse than anything else." "You think this is about distance?" it asked. Kale didn't respond. But I felt it. The tension. The threat. The understanding that something here was far beyond even him. "You carry more than an heir," the creature said, its gaze shifting to me again. My heart stuttered. "I carry my child." "No." It took a step closer. "You carry the end, and the beginning." The words echoed in my mind long after they were spoken. And before I could respond, the ground beneath us trembled. Cracks spread across the stone. Light seeped through them, deep, molten, alive. The darkness pulsed. The air shifted. And something ancient began to awaken. Kale grabbed my hand. "We move. Now." But the moment we turned, the ground split open. And everything changed. The ground didn't just crack. It screamed. A deep, violent sound tore through the darkness as the stone beneath us split apart, jagged lines racing outward like veins of fire. Light burst through the fractures, glowing, molten, alive, and the force of it knocked the breath straight out of my lungs. Kale. His grip on my hand tightened instantly, pulling me back just as a massive section of ground collapsed inward. "Stay with me," he commanded. "I'm here." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure how long I could hold on. Because the world itself was shifting. The darkness around us twisted, folding in on itself like reality was being torn apart. The shadows rose, not like mist but like living things, stretching upward, circling, watching. And beneath it all, something moved. Something massive. Something ancient. The creature didn't react. It stood still, completely calm, as if this chaos was nothing more than a ripple in something far greater. "You should not have brought them here," it said quietly. Kale's eyes darkened. "I didn't bring anything." The creature's gaze shifted toward the widening cracks in the ground. "They followed the scent," it replied. My stomach dropped. "The child," I whispered. A low, echoing sound rose from beneath us. Not a growl. Not a roar. Something deeper. Something that vibrated through bone and blood alike. Kale stepped in front of me again, his stance widening, his body tense and ready. Whatever comes out of there, he said, his voice low, dangerous, it doesn't touch you. My chest tightened. You don't know that. I don't need to, he replied. For a moment. Despite everything. Despite the darkness, the fear, the unknown. Something inside me softened. Because he didn't hesitate. He didn't doubt. He didn't step back. And then, the ground exploded. Stone shattered outward as something surged up from beneath, a mass of shadow and molten light twisting into form. The force of it threw us back, tearing my hand from Kale's grip as I hit the ground hard. Elara. I'm okay. I gasped, pushing myself up. But the words died in my throat. Because it was no longer just one creature. The darkness had opened. And something else was coming through. Shapes moved within the cracks, flickering, shifting, half-formed. Not wolves. Not fully anything. But they were alive. And they were coming. Kale moved instantly, stepping forward, placing himself between me and the rising forms. His claws extended, his body shifting slightly, not fully into wolf form, but enough to let his power surface. Stay back, he growled. I'm not leaving you, I shot back, even as my voice shook. His head turned slightly, his eyes locking onto mine for a brief second. And something passed between us. Not words. Understanding. Then stay close. The first of the creatures lunged. Fast. Silent. Deadly. Kale met it head-on. The impact was brutal. Claws collided with something that wasn't quite solid, sending a ripple through the air itself. The creature let out a distorted sound as Kale struck it again, forcing it back. But it didn't fall. It didn't bleed. It simply reformed. They don't die, I whispered. I can see that, Kale muttered, striking again. More emerged. 1. Then 3. Then 10. They surrounded us. Closing in slowly. Watching. Waiting. The original creature, the ancient one, still hadn't moved. It simply observed. Like this was a test. My stomach burned again. Stronger this time. The child reacted. No. The child responded. A pulse of energy surged outward from me, brighter than before. The creatures nearest to me recoiled instantly, their forms distorting as if the light itself burned them. Kale turned sharply. Elara. I didn't mean to. But even as I spoke, I realized something. I hadn't lost control. The energy hadn't exploded wildly like before. It had moved, deliberately. Focused. They fear you, Kale said quietly. I shook my head. No. My gaze lifted slowly to the creatures. They fear the child. A new voice echoed through the darkness. You're starting to understand. My blood ran cold. Darius. He stepped out from the shadows like he had been there all along. His silver eyes glowed brighter than before, his presence heavier, darker, like this place had made him stronger. You shouldn't be here, Kale growled. Darius smirked. And miss this. His gaze shifted to me. To my stomach. To the light still faintly pulsing beneath my skin. Not a chance. The creatures didn't attack him. They moved around him. With him. Realization hit like ice. You're controlling them. Darius tilted his head slightly. Control is such a crude word, he said. Let's just say, we have an understanding. Kale's growl deepened. You brought them here. I followed what belongs to me. Rage flared instantly. It doesn't belong to you. I snapped. His smile widened. That's where you're wrong. Before I could respond, he moved. Faster than anything I had ever seen. Straight toward me. Kale intercepted him instantly. Their clash sent a shockwave through the ground. Power collided. Violent. Unforgiving. They were evenly matched. But this wasn't a fair fight. Because the creatures closed in. And this time, they didn't hesitate. They attacked. Kale fought two at once, striking, tearing, pushing them back. But for every one he drove away, another took its place. Darius circled. Waiting. Watching. For an opening. My heart pounded violently. I couldn't just stand there. I couldn't just wait. The child surged again. And this time, I didn't fight it. I let it happen. The energy rose from deep within me, warm, powerful, alive. It spread through my chest, my arms, my entire body, until it felt like I was glowing from the inside out. Elara, don't, Kale started. But it was too late. The power exploded outward. Light surged through the darkness, blinding, pure, unstoppable. The creatures screamed, if that's what the sound was, as they were thrown back, their forms unraveling under the force of it. Even Darius staggered. Silence fell. Heavy. Absolute. I stood there, breathing hard, the light still flickering around me. And for the first time, I didn't feel afraid of it. The ancient creature stepped forward again. Slow. Deliberate. Yes, it said softly. It awakens. My chest rose and fell rapidly. What is happening to me? It stopped just a few steps away. Close enough that I could feel the weight of its presence pressing against my skin. What has always been waiting, it replied. Kale stepped closer to me, his body tense, his eyes fixed on the creature. Explain. The creature's gaze shifted between us. The child, it said, is not just the future of your kind. My breath hitched. It is the key to something far greater. The words echoed in the darkness. Heavy. Final. And deep inside me, something answered. The light flared again. Stronger. Brighter. Unstoppable. And this time, it didn't just push outward. It pulled. The ground trembled violently. The shadows twisted. The creatures recoiled. Even Darius took a step back. What are you doing? He demanded. I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. But something inside me did. The light surged one final time. And the world around us shattered. Everything dissolved. Darkness. Stone. Creatures. Even the ground beneath our feet. And in the blinding flash that followed, only one thought remained. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Light didn't fade. It tore everything apart. For a single, endless moment, there was nothing but brilliance. Blinding. Burning. Absolute. Then, impact. I hit the ground hard, air ripped from my lungs as the light vanished just as violently as it had come. My body trembled, my senses struggling to catch up with reality as sound slowly returned. Wind. Leaves. Breathing. Mine. And someone else's. Elara. Kale. I forced my eyes open. This time, the darkness was gone. We were back in the forest. But something was wrong. The air felt heavier. Charged. Like the world itself had changed, even if it looked the same. Kale was beside me instantly, his hands gripping my shoulders as his eyes searched mine. Look at me. I did. I'm here, I whispered. Relief flashed across his face, but it didn't last long. Because he felt it too. The shift. What happened? I asked. His jaw tightened. You tell me. Before I could answer, A low growl echoed from behind us. We turned at the same time, and my heart dropped. They were already there. Dozens of wolves emerged from the shadows of the forest. Not just one pack. Not even two. Different eyes. Different markings. Different scents. Multiple alphas. They had followed us. Through whatever that place was. And now, they stood in our world. Waiting. A tall wolf stepped forward, shifting partially into human form. His eyes glowed a cold, calculating gold. Looks like the rumors were true, he said slowly. Kale moved in front of me instantly. Protective. Unyielding. Deadly. Say what you came to say, Kale growled. The alpha smirked. We came for what belongs to us. My stomach tightened. No, Kale said flatly. The alpha's gaze shifted past him, to me. To my stomach. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then, another voice joined in. From the side. Deeper. Colder. She doesn't belong to you anymore, Kale. Darius stepped forward. And everything inside me went still. He looked different. Stronger. Like whatever we had just experienced hadn't weakened him. It had sharpened him. His silver eyes locked onto mine. Hungry. Possessive. Calculating. The bond has changed, he said softly. Kale's growl rumbled through the air. You don't get to speak about it. Darius ignored him. Completely. She felt it, he continued, his voice lowering. The awakening. My breath hitched. You don't understand what you're carrying, Elara. I understand enough, I snapped, forcing strength into my voice. His smile widened. No, you don't. Tension snapped. Take her. Everything exploded. Wolves lunged forward all at once. Different packs. Different alphas. United by one thing. Me. Kale moved first. Fast. Brutal. Unstoppable. He slammed into the nearest wolf, sending it crashing into a tree with bone-shattering force. Another lunged, he tore through it. A third, he didn't even slow down. But there were too many. Way too many. Elara, move, he shouted. I stumbled back, heart racing, trying to create distance, but the circle tightened instantly. They weren't just attacking. They were hunting. And I was the prize. A wolf lunged straight at me. And this time, I didn't freeze. The power surged again. But different. Controlled. Focused. I raised my hand instinctively. And the moment it got close, it was thrown back. Violently. Like an invisible force had ripped it away. Silence hit for half a second. What was that? One of the alphas whispered. Darius didn't look surprised. He looked satisfied. Yes, he murmured. Kale turned toward me, shock flickering in his expression. Elara. I didn't even think, I said, my voice shaking slightly. That's the problem, he replied. Another wave came. This time stronger. Kale grabbed me, pulling me close as he fought forward again. We're not staying here. Where do we go? His eyes hardened. Anywhere but here. But we weren't getting out. Not easily. The alphas closed in again, more coordinated now. Smarter. Testing. Learning. They had realized something. I wasn't just vulnerable. I was dangerous. And that made me even more valuable. Darius stepped forward slowly, raising his hand. Everything stopped. Even the other alphas hesitated. Enough, he said calmly. Kale's body tensed. Say your piece, Kale growled. Darius's gaze locked onto mine again. You felt it, he said. I didn't respond. You saw it, he continued. My silence confirmed it. He smiled faintly. The war. My heart dropped. Kale's eyes flickered. You're talking nonsense, Kale snapped. No, Darius said quietly. I'm talking about what's coming. The forest grew still. You think this is about packs? Darius continued. His voice lowered. This is bigger than all of us. I felt it. The truth in his words. And I hated it. What do you want? I asked. His gaze softened, just slightly. You. Kale stepped forward instantly. No. Darius's expression hardened. You don't get to say no anymore. The words hit like a threat. Because they were. The air shifted again. Not from the wolves. From something else. Something, approaching. Kale felt it too. His head snapped toward the tree lean. They're coming. But this time, it wasn't just wolves. The shadows between the trees moved. Wrong. Too smooth. Too unnatural. And then, they stepped out. The same creatures from before. But now, in our world, a ripple of fear spread through the alphas. Even Darius still. That's not possible, someone whispered. But it was. Because whatever we had opened had followed us back. And now, everything was about to change. Kale pulled me closer. No matter what happens, he said quietly. I don't let you go. The bond flared between us. Stronger than ever. Unbreakable. I looked up at him. And for the first time, I believed him. But it might not be enough. Because the creatures began to move. And this time, they weren't choosing sides. They were choosing destruction. And we were all in the middle of it. The moment the creatures stepped into our world, everything changed. The forest didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a battlefield. Silence fell first. Not peace. Not calm. The kind of silence that comes right before everything breaks. The alphas, powerful, feared, dominant, stood frozen. Not because they were weak, but because, for the first time, they didn't understand what they were facing. The creatures moved slowly at first, their forms flickering between shadow and flame, their bodies unstable yet terrifyingly real. Their presence twisted the air around them, bent it, corrupted it. One stepped forward, then another, then more, and suddenly, they weren't just emerging. They were surrounding us. Kale's grip on me tightened. Stay behind me. No, I said. He stilled. I'm not hiding anymore. The words surprised even me. But they were true. Because something inside me had changed. The fear was still there. But it wasn't controlling me anymore. The child pulsed again. Not violently. Not wildly. But steadily. Like a heartbeat that wasn't just mine. Elara, Kale's voice dropped, softer now. I can feel it, I whispered. He didn't ask what I meant. Because he could feel it too. The bond between us surged, stronger, deeper, more alive than it had ever been before. Not broken. Not damaged. But reforged. The creatures stopped moving. All at once. And then, they turned. Not toward the alphas. Not toward Kale. Toward me. My breath caught. They're not here for war, I whispered. Kale's body went rigid. They're here for you. Darius stepped forward slowly, his silver eyes gleaming with something dangerous. "No," he said quietly. "They're here for what she carries." The words sent a chill through the clearing. The tension snapped. Everything moved at once. The creatures surged forward. But this time, they didn't attack like before. They moved with purpose, precision, intent. Straight toward me. Kale shifted instantly. Fully. His wolf exploded forward in a flash of power, massive, dominant, unstoppable. His roar shook the forest as he slammed into the nearest creature, tearing through it with raw alpha force. But it didn't slow them down. More came. Faster. Stronger. The alphas joined the fight. Not out of loyalty. Not out of unity. But survival. Claws met shadow. Teeth met flame. Power collided in violent bursts that shook the earth itself. Chaos erupted. And in the middle of it, I stood still. Because something inside me was waking up. The child surged. Not like before. This time, it didn't feel like power. It felt like truth. My vision blurred. The world around me faded. And then, I saw it. Not the forest. Not the battle. Something else. A throne. Ancient. Massive. Carved from something that pulsed with the same energy now burning inside me. And standing before it, a figure. Small. But powerful. A child. My child. Its eyes opened. Gold. Blinding. Endless. And when it spoke, the world answered. I gasped as the vision shattered. Power exploded out of me. This time, there was no control. Because I wasn't controlling it. It was becoming me. Light erupted outward, stronger than anything before, pure, ancient, unstoppable. The ground cracked beneath my feet as the force of it pushed everything back. Creatures screamed as their forms tore apart under the pressure. Even the alphas were forced to their knees. Even Kale. Elara. His voice reached me, but it felt distant. Because I wasn't fully there anymore. The power surrounded me completely. Wrapped around me. Claimed me. And for the first time, I understood. This wasn't just about survival. This wasn't just about packs. This wasn't just about an heir. This was about something far bigger. Something older. Something that had been waiting. For me. The creatures stopped fighting. They didn't retreat. They vowed. Every single one of them. Silence fell. Heavy. Absolute. Darius stared at me, his expression no longer confident. No longer amused. This time, he looked afraid. What are you? He whispered. I looked down at my hands. Light flickered across my skin. Alive. Unreal. I think. My voice echoed, not just in the air, but in everything around us. I am the beginning of something you can't control. The ground trembled violently. The sky above darkened unnaturally. Even the forest seemed to pull away. Kale forced himself to his feet, his eyes locked onto me. Not with fear. With something deeper. Pride. And something that made my chest tighten. Love. Elara, he said, stepping closer despite the power surrounding me. You're not alone. The words cut through everything. Through the power. Through the fear. Through the chaos. And suddenly, I was back. Not fully. But enough. The light softened slightly. The pressure eased. The world steadied. I looked at him. Really looked at him. And for the first time since everything began, I didn't see the alpha who rejected me. I saw the mud who refused to let me fall. I know, I whispered. The bond flared. Stronger than ever. Unbreakable. But it wasn't over. Because something else was happening. Something worse. The creatures began to rise again. Not attacking. Not retreating. Changing. Their forms twisted, merging together, pulling into something larger. Darker. More powerful. Kale's expression hardened instantly. That's not good. No, I said slowly. It's not. The merged creature roared. And this time, it wasn't just powerful. It was aware. Completely. Its gaze locked onto me. And it spoke. You have awakened too soon. My blood ran cold. What does that mean? It stepped forward. Now they will all come. Silence fell. Kale's body tensed. Who, he demanded. The creature's eyes burned brighter. The ones who created the first bond. My heart stopped. The first, what? But it didn't answer. Because the sky above us split open. A massive crack tore through the air itself, glowing with the same ancient energy as before. And from within it, something began to descend. Something far more powerful than anything we had faced. Something that made even the creature step back. Something that made the ground tremble. And the bond between me and Kale burned. Not with warmth, but with warning. My breath hitched. Kale. He didn't look away from the sky. I see it. The light grew brighter. Closer. Stronger. And as it broke through into our world, everything inside me whispered the same terrifying truth. This was only the beginning.